Good morning. Tyler, Jason, can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. So y'all are the early birds. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Let's see.
Hey, Mr. Kenny,
Yep.
do you use a lot of beard oil?
I'm sorry, what's that?
Do you use a lot of beard oil?
What kind of oil?
Beard?
No, I've never used it.
You've never used beard oil?
No, what's it for?
It's like, it makes your beard look more moisturized. Like, so I guess the hairs, as they grow, they pull like oils from your skin. So the beard oil is, you put it underneath, like on your chin, and it just moisturizes everything. It's fantastic. It makes beard look amazing.
I'll look into, I thought you were saying BEER oil.
Like beer oil? No.
As opposed to BEARD.
Yeah, beard. Sorry, it's my accent.
That's all right. No, well, I've kind of just let it go during the pandemic. So this is probably,
okay.
This is a lot longer than ever, but it's probably a good idea to try that.
It's fantastic. I know this guy who has like the same length beard as you, and his beard looks just like, it's just amazing. I don't know. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. You know, I've heard from a couple well, there's one person who said she couldn't come, who's coming in, but let's see. Fernando, you were able to make it after all, or at least for a while?
Oh, yes. So I sent you another email. I will be logged in. I'm just walking into work right now, so I won't be able to participate.
That's fine. And like you, that's good. Okay, thank you for trying. All right, you know, why don't we just get started? Because ideally there are going to be more people. And if not, it's really to your benefit to be here today. Hannah, is that you on the iPhone?
No, this is me. I'm in.
Who is it?
I'm in, Adam.
Hey, good, Abdi, thank you. Okay, and
no, I'm in. AMIN. I'm in.
Amin, okay, thank you. Amin, is that your first name?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I think I keep referring to you as Adam because of the way it shows up in the registrar. But thank you for clarifying, okay? I don't think the Bunker Hill made it clear, or something about your middle name didn't make it clear to me it was your last name, or the registration, one or the other. All right, so
Okay.
iPhone, is that iPhone, Hannah?
Yes, this is Hannah.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, good to see y'all. Let's get going, because I really, one of the big challenges here is just covering everything I need to in an hour and 15 minutes. And so I spent as much time this morning trying to figure out what to leave out as what to put in. And I'm going to try to pace it. The real goal, let me get my slides up and then we'll talk. Okay. So welcome. Today we're going to look at your class schedule because we really are right at the end. It kind of came up quickly here. And I hated to just give you that homework for Molly's text without doing anything with it. So we're going to do a very brief look at that. And then we're going to talk about one of Claudia Rankine's poems. We may talk about more, but the reason I'm going to try to keep that short is that the real rest of the class, I want to get you ready to study for your essay that you'll write next week, which for some of you will be the last essay of the semester. And I'll explain that better. But remember, this is going to be theoretically in class in the sense that I'm going to ask you to write it as quickly as you can, not not just rush through it, but the idea is turn it in as though you were writing in class. And if you happen to have a work conflict, you can't deal with it next Friday after class or during, with class and right after, then I'm just going to give you a deadline of the weekend. But we'll talk about that better in just a bit. But as preparation for that, we're going to read a couple of poems by Lucille Clifton. And I've chosen 3 poems for you to choose from for your essay. And at the very last minute, I decided in addition to the poems you could write an essay on, I'm going to offer you 1 essay. And so you'll have 3 poems and an essay you can choose from. You won't even see that in the slides because I just did it. But anyway, that's the plan for today. And why don't we get going? So, all right. So next week, when you come, I'm going to give you some things to read at home. And when you come to class next week, you're going to get a writing assignment. And the idea is to do that as though, really just to turn to it right away, like pretend you're in class and you have to complete it before you leave the classroom. That's the ideal way. If those of you that are working or those of you with children or there's anything that interferes with that and you can't do it that promptly, I'm going to ask you to please have it in by Sunday night. And that should allow you flexibility around a work schedule or a family schedule. But you really should just be, like if you have an in-class essay, most of the writing classes in Bunker Hill, you have 1 hour and 15 minutes to do them. I usually teach a class where it's 2 classes back to back. And so I can allow students to take 2.5 hours and stay longer if they need to. I never put a time limit on it. But most people finish in close to 1 hour and 15 minutes or say at least around 2 hours. But that's the way I want you to think about that. That essay, if you do well enough with it, and I look at all your other grades and I can see that it's a satisfactory grade or you've done a good job, that will be the end of it. You won't need to write another essay. If though I look at that and you really need to write more to try to improve your grade, or because you're not satisfied, you're welcome to do that. I'll give you another topic the following week. But this is the last time we're going to have discussion in class, and next week, potentially, for most of you who've been doing really nice, or those of you who've been doing nice work, you could end your semester. Okay, any questions on the schedule? We'll be talking about the assignment later, so you can ask more then. All right, I wanted to start off just talking about the Molly piece that I gave you. And, the basic idea here is just trying to get you to read carefully. And it's, this was a comic piece and it had a lot of bad jokes all through it. But the fact is that all of us could stand to read what we write more carefully. And all of us can make inadvertent mistakes. I mean, any mistake, nobody makes a mistake on purpose, but some mistakes are worse than others. And they would be easily eliminated if we would just check carefully. And so, let's just do a couple of, we're not going to do this whole piece. I wanted to just look at it. And then if you had particular things you had questions about, I would be glad we could take those up. But let's just look at this. Is this ever, I'm sorry, my screen's a little blocked, so I can't see that first bit of it. Has this ever happened to you? Tyler, why don't you go ahead and correct that first line for us? What's it trying to say?
It's trying to tell us, has this ever happened to you? But it ends it in a question mark. Well,
I don't think that one has any problem, does it? Has this ever happened to you? You could write that. That doesn't have a gross error.
Yeah. I went to bed at like 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm fried, but
that's okay. Do the next line. That's where I wanted you to start.
You work very hard. Okay, well, it's supposed to be hard on a paper for English class.
Okay.
Okay, what's supposed to be class, not clash.
So what this is playing with is words that sound similar, and you
Also, it doesn't. Oh, sorry.
actually right.
I was gonna say also it doesn't have a. Yeah, it doesn't have a period.
Well, this is poorly punctuated, but yes, it doesn't have a period. You could say, though, it keeps going and the and shouldn't be a capital, the next line. But yeah, you're right about that as well. But you know what? And the main thing here, one of the things you should recognize from this, it's a lot easier to spot errors in other people's writing than it is in your own. And so part of the trick of proofing more carefully for yourself is learning how to look at it as though it were somebody else's. And we'll talk about some tricks for that. But Tyler, go ahead and do that next line too.
And then get a very low grade or low grade. Oh, hey, I didn't notice that. He switched the words around. Like a D or even a D equals. He means D minus.
Yeah. Okay. So just clumsy stuff, bad typing, these kinds of things happen. Jason, why don't you pick up there?
I'm sorry, what were you?
And all because, why don't you pick up there correcting the line that we have?
Okay. And all because you are the world's liverwurst spoiler, proofreading your peppers is a matter of the utmost impotence.
So read it corrected.
Okay. And all because you are the world's liverwurst spoiler.
Well, first of all, how does worlds need to be corrected?
With the one being an L behind the D.
There's no D, and if it's going to be the worlds, what kind of punctuation does it need?
An apostrophe.
Correct. All right, the worlds.
Okay.
That's kind of mangled in more ways than I realized. It's a one instead of an L, and there's no apostrophe, and the L and the T are inverted. There's some kind of really mixed up thing there. I'm not sure about the liverwurst, other than to say I think it just means worst. Okay.
Okay.
World's worst. What's the last word?
Spoiler.
And what should it be?
I really don't know.
Anybody help Jason speak up?
It's speller.
Speller. You're the world's worst speller. Okay. And that should make sense, Jason, right?
It does.
Okay. So Abdi, could you do that the last sentence here?
Sure. Proofreading your peppers is a matter of the utmost impotence. So it's supposed to say, proofreading your papers is a matter of the utmost importance.
There you go. All right. And thank you. So, this is here it's goofy. It's easy to see. I'm gonna just keep going because I don't think we need it. What's important here is the principle. And there's a cliche: you don't have to eat the whole roast to know what it tastes like. So we're not going to go through this whole thing. If you have a question, I could. But notice that the foolishness here is that there's just a bunch of sloppy errors. There are misspellings. There's wrong words. There's bad typing, and there's a lot of just confusing one word for what another word that it sounds like, or that it's spelled similarly. And those kinds of words can trip a lot of us up. And so I did put in your assignment folder, I put a couple of resources. This is just a list. Pet peeves are things that irritate people. Look at the very last one. A lot is always two words. This is a very common error. Another good one here is the contraction of could have, which is could have, is not spelled could of, right? It's COLUD apostrophe VE. And so, all of these, are just simple, common errors of some of the little, minefields in English, like all the variations of to, all the variations of there, all the variations of your. So those are just meant to be reminders, and that's in your assignment folder somewhere. Reading the assignments, I think. Here's a long list of homonyms, which are words that are spelled the same but have different meanings, or sound the same rather, excuse me, sound the same but are spelled differently. And you know, two, and two, there, and there are some of the common ones, but you can, this is a long list. Some of these may have never occurred to you, but like lead and lead is one that's really often confused in student papers. I'm not going to go into them. This isn't like a list to memorize, but taking a look at this kind of helps sensitize you to some of the things that you could misspell. It's very common to see in papers NO for KNOW, okay, for example. And it's just even if you don't see anything that jumps out, it's a good thing to be aware of. So, you know, to put this in a larger context, when we rewrite, there are various ways we do it. And you know, revising and editing are almost interchangeable. You could think of revising as being bigger chunks. You know, what do you add or what do you take out? What do you have to clear up? You could think of editing as just trying to make the sentences sharper, or do I break my paragraphs in the right place? And what we're looking at now is proofing, where you're simply trying to check to correct mistakes. And, you know, it's just a step that you can't skip. And, you know, as students, for some of you, I read your essays and I do wonder, did you reread this paragraph? Because I think if you'd read it carefully enough, it wouldn't have looked like it the way you turned it in. And so the simple thing about proofreading is that, first of all, you just have to reread what you wrote, okay? You don't just finish writing and turn something in. And better than just rereading, you do something to help you see it freshly, because it is so much easier to see errors in somebody else's writing. You want to do something to make your writing almost seem like it's someone else's. And so when you have plenty of time, like when you have a week to write something, it's best to take a break, like wait a day before you reread it, okay? Even when you're writing in class, like, you know, I'm trying to get you in your next assignment to write in a restricted, like in one sitting. But after you draft something, there you still use the whole writing process. Before you start writing, after you've read the prompt, you plan what you're going to say, you write it, then take a break, you know, go get some water, go to the bathroom, come back and then start rereading to see it clearer again. When you have more time, and you may be able to do this even on your simulated in class, if you're working online, if you're working at your computer and then you print something out, it looks a lot different. It does like reading somebody else's. That helps you see it. If you write by hand, then when you key it in, you see it differently. And that can help you clean things up. But another, you know, a common trick, read it aloud. Okay, then you can hear what you're saying. That helps you see it as somebody else's. And as you read, you know, whether you're reading silently or out loud, look where sentences start and end. If you've gone on for 5, 6, 7 lines and you don't have a period and a capital to start a new sentence, there's a good chance you're running things together. And so you have to just sort of get yourself looking for potential mistakes. Now that's a quick tour, but that's kind of what I wanted you to get out of that. And I'm going to keep it. Well, any questions about the proofing, first of all? All right, I'm going to keep going just because we've got a good bit to do. So I want to, you know, when I looked at the homework today, very few people had turned in homework on Claudia Rankine. And since we are, I am going to get you to write, your options for your essay next week are going to be poems. I'm going to give you one essay option too, but I'm giving you 3 poems you could choose from. I think it's really important we try to talk about one of her poems today. And so even though many of you did not do this, I think enough of you did it that we can talk about at least one well, and we may take up another. Yeah, we probably have time to do two. So remember, what I had asked you to do is to read her poem and just describe the situation, kind of what takes place in it, who's speaking to whom, what's the incident, what does it seem to be addressing? And then I wanted you to identify what the microaggression, what microaggression comes out of this situation. And to think about that microaggression in terms of what was the person's intent versus what was the impact. And finally, for the person who was the target of the microaggression, the person who received it, what kind of feelings would it stir up? That's what I was looking for us to do. So now I'm going to exit screen share a second and open up one of Claudia Rankin's poems. And good, I see a few more have joined us. So I had asked you to either write about the one on page 9 or the one on page 10. And let's see, Cleo, you wrote about one of the shorter ones. Why don't we, if you don't, let's start with that one if you don't mind. Let me find it. Here it is. Kalia, do you mind reading this one for us and stepping us through your analysis of it?
Yeah, you want me to read the one on page 5 that I did?
Yeah, it's on the screen. If you can, oh wait, I'm sorry, I'm not sharing
I
it.
can't see it.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I didn't share it. I was looking at it, but I hadn't shared it. There we go. Now, can you see it?
Yeah. At the end of a brief phone conversation, you tell the manager you're speaking with that you'll come by the office to sign the form. When you arrive and announce yourself, he blurts out, "I didn't know you were Black." "I didn't mean to say that," he then says. "Aloud," you say. "What?" he asks. "You didn't mean to say that aloud." Your transaction goes smoothly after that.
Okay, so what's the situation here?
Okay, so I had said that, okay, so what I wrote, I said it starts off like a phone call was made between a manager and an employee, or someone who just passed the interview and like they're gonna start work soon. And for the rest of the poem, they meet in an office, but when the person who was on the phone comes in person, the manager is surprised that he's Black, like, "Oh, you're a Black person." And I took that as like, he probably spoke really well on the phone. So when he met him in person, he didn't expect them to be a Black person.
I think that's a good assessment of what's going on here. Now, notice a couple of things you said. We don't know whether it's a man or a woman on the phone, right?
Yeah, that's why I just said they, because I didn't know.
Yeah, you know, you did say they, and I remember reading that. And it could have been either. And we don't know. I like the idea you thought that you saw it as an interview. I wasn't sure what kind of form needed to be signed. But the critical thing is they've talked on the phone, right? And the manager, yeah, the person's called a manager, had one impression and then has a different when the person walks in. So what's the microaggression here?
I said the microaggression is the manager stating how he's surprised that the employee is someone who's Black.
Yes, I didn't know you were Black. All right. But notice here, what does the person say in response? And when and then he kind of realizes an error, right? Because he says, excuse me, he says, "I didn't mean to say that," right? So that's kind of like, oh, my fault. So what does the other person say?
He says like, "Nah, you didn't mean to say it out loud." Like, you meant what you said, you just didn't mean to say it out loud.
Yes, and so the person receiving it here, in that sense, kind of stands up for themselves, right? For him or herself, and notice here, I'm sure that there was something offensive about that, but it ends telling us the transaction goes smoothly. So how do you think, what kind of feelings do you think this stirred up though in the person who came into the office?
You're asking me, right?
Say that again, Kalia.
Are you asking me?
Yeah, please. I'm just letting.
I feel like the person on the phone probably felt as though probably disrespected, because I mean, if that was me, I would have felt disrespected simply because you assumed my race for one, and it's almost as if you're trying to say because I'm black, I wasn't capable of holding the conversation as well as I did.
Very good. And let's realize too, it's as though you can tell what color people are by the way they speak, or you can tell, that somehow that's revealing. And again, to whatever degree that might be possible, that's not a problem. But the problem is the presumption, and the kind of stereotyping. And I think Kalia said something a couple of times that's worth underscoring is if the manager didn't think the person was black, what did he think? And why didn't he think that? Because they sounded white, because in his mind, or because he thought they sounded intelligent? Whatever the implication of, it's not a very nice one, right? It has some way of making it sound like a slight. And so it's hard for me to imagine that the you in the poem who said, you didn't mean to say it aloud, that's really calling the person out. You meant it, you just didn't mean to say it aloud. I think that the manager's silence kind of confirms that. But however hurt the person was, that retort, I think, does show some amount of protection. Do you think, Kalia, or do you see where I'm getting at with that?
Yeah, no, I agree.
It's like that person has stood up there. So this was a shorter one. And this is, notice the way that it is vague, in that we don't have specifically what the form is about. One of the things I like that I always read these thinking of women because of Claudia Rankin. But I think it's perfectly sensible here that you could hear this as a transaction between men. It's perfectly sensible that the you makes us uncomfortable because it's like it's us, This is what happens to you. The you in the poem becomes us as a reader. And so they have this kind of, that kind of quality. They have a quality that draws us into them. So now let's go to the last one. Excuse me. Or the next to last, I should say. Abdi, can I get you to walk us through this one?
Sure. Did you want me to read it?
Yeah, please do. And I may interrupt, but let's just read it. We may pause and kind of comment it as we go a little bit, but go ahead. Let's get the whole thing read.
Sure. You and your partner go to see the film The House We Live In. You ask a friend to pick up your child from school. On your way home, your phone rings. Your neighbor tells you he's standing at his window watching a menacing black guy chasing both of your homes. The guy is walking back and forth and seems disturbed. You tell your neighbor that your friend whom he met is babysitting. He says, no, it's not him. He's met your friend and this isn't that nice young man. Anyway, he wants you to know he's called the police. Your partner called his friend.
Let's pause just a minute, Abdi. So what's the situation here?
Somebody's babysitting for the man, and his neighbor is suspicious of him, so he calls the police.
And notice that the neighbor has actually been introduced to this person, right?
Right.
And is denying that. Instead, he's seeing this as somebody that he needed to call the police on. All right. And why do you think he did that, Abdi? What does that say?
Well, the thing that I wrote about in my response is like fear and underlying systemic discrimination.
Yeah, he just sees this man, and I think we are to understand and can appreciate he's a black man, and that sets off alarms. just that there's a black man on the sidewalk in the house next to it. Now keep going.
Your partner calls your friend and asks him if there's a guy walking back and forth in front of your home. Your friend says that if anyone were outside, he would see him because he is standing outside. You hear the sirens through the speakerphone.
Pause.
Your
So notice
yes,
there, they
yeah.
call the man out front just to follow the plot. Keep going now.
Your friend is speaking to your neighbor when you arrive home. The 4 police cars are gone. Your neighbor has apologized to your friend and is now apologizing to you. Feeling somewhat responsible for the actions of your neighbor, you clumsily tell your friend that the next time he wants to talk on the phone, he should just go in the backyard. He looks at you for a long minute before saying he can speak on the phone wherever he wants. Yes, of course, you say. Yes, of course.
Okay, good work. So let's, one of the things interesting about this one is that there are actually 2 microaggressions. What's the first microaggression, Abdi?
Is that the black guy that's right outside of your home is obviously, trying to burgle it, or, he doesn't have good intentions, basically.
According to whom?
The neighbor.
Yeah, so the neighbor calls the police for simply being on the sidewalk in front of their neighbor's home, right? And that is a micro, that's one of those microaggressions that could spiral into something much more dangerous. Just by virtue of him being there, he called the police. We have ample evidence that police interactions can go badly very quickly, right? Various things can set them off. Various things can set them off that are completely inconsequential. But that's what the young man who had been kind enough to babysit had to endure. Okay. But by the time they get there, it looks like the neighbor has attempted to make amends. And, let me back up for just a second. I heard Claudia Rankin speak about this poem once. And she said that that literally when she moved into a neighborhood, she is Black, her husband's wife. She was the only Black person on the block. So she had a neighborhood kind of cocktail party so that she could meet everybody and they could meet some of her friends. And this young man that babysat was one of the people there. So this is a true story. Not that truth makes art, any more, it's just one element, but it's true that she tried to let her neighbors be aware of both who she was and who her friends were. And so that's what she was referring to in the first paragraph when she said you'd met him before. But now, what's the second microaggression here, Abdi?
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna say before that, like the fact that there's like 4 police cars that come, I feel like that's kind of an underlying another like kind of microaggression because a lot of people are expected to stay calm when the police are like they brought 4 police cars, so they expect the victim to stay calm while the police officers, they have whatever jurisdiction.
You're absolutely right. That's so understated in the poem because the facts speak for themselves, right? 4 police cars signals a lot of trouble. You could probably be in a lot of trouble and call the police and you'd be lucky, to get one there, much less get 4. But you're right he calls, first of all, as a microaggression, that incident, just the fact there's a Black man in a white neighborhood warrants 4 police cars is like another kind of escalation. And, it's always the unwarranted escalation that so many of these horrible killings come from. And so this, this teeters, this is all's well here, but this is the very scenario that can go wrong. But yes, okay, so he calls the police respond with, full force of 4 people, which, the young man, that could have triggered the young man in some way. But then what's the next microaggression? And thank you for underscoring the police cars. I think that's really absolutely true.
Sure. So the next one, I think it was similar to the first one in the sense that they kind of just it's sorry. He tells him that he should talk on the phone in the backyard so his neighbors aren't scared. So in a way, like he's telling him that like his skin color, it scares people basically, and to, you know, not talk on the phone in plain sight in his neighborhood.
And so what's his reply?
Says he can talk. He waits for a second to make sure it's like reality that he's actually telling him that. And then he says he can speak on the phone wherever he wants.
Good. Okay. And notice her reply at that point. And I'm going to assume this is the female voice. Yes, of course, you say. Yes, of course. So he stands up for himself, right? And he's not, you know, he's going to say, y'all may all think this is fair, but no, I don't have to talk only in the backyard. But notice even his friend commits another microaggression. And what was her likely intent? What was her likely intent, Abdi?
To keep the victim safe.
I'm sorry, what?
To to not scare his neighbors, but also to keep the babysitter safe. So like, you know, what just happened doesn't happen to him.
Yeah, she's probably being protective, right? Like, let's just avoid this situation. It's
Right.
It's easier to avoid it. But he doesn't allow that, right? He says instead, I can speak wherever I want to. And then she sees her era, right? She can see, you're right, of course, right? And
Right.
I think that one of the things, this is even more, I'm really glad you pointed to the 4 police cars, because this is even richer than I realized. But this also, it's not like this is a white against black phenomenon only. You know, here, his own friend, you know, the spokesperson, who's really probably very upset the neighbor called the police, winds up saying something that kind of partakes of the same thing. And so I think that it illustrates how easy it is for any of us to fall into this kind of judgment and this kind of painful speech. And do you follow me on that, Abdi? It seems very humble for her to have preserved her own air. You know, part of this is her own lesson she learned from it. It's not just the neighbor's lesson; it's her own lesson, and that seems a very rich thing.
Yeah.
Any other comments here or questions? Abdi, you've done well with that, and I appreciate you taking it up in class, and you too, Kalia. Any other comments? I think we worked this over pretty thoroughly. Let's do the last one. I think we're doing okay for time. Do we have a volunteer for this? Did anyone, if you did it on your homework, you're welcome to volunteer. Even if you didn't, you can read it and we can talk through it together. Hannah, how about you read this for us, okay?
Okay.
And let me pause a second. Again, you know, I said last week that Claudia Rankin said everything in this book either happened to her or to a friend of hers. And when I heard her read once, she said that this actually happened to a friend. There's a number of reasons that's very painful to hear, but she said she told her friend no way, and her friend said way, you know, that this did happen. So again, this is a recounting of something that someone actually had to go through. So Hannah, go ahead and start, please.
Okay. The new therapist specialized in the trauma counseling. You have only ever spoken on the phone. Her house has a side gate that led to a back entrance she used for patients. You walked down a path bordered on both sides with their glass and rosemary to the gate, which turns out to be locked.
Pause just a second. So let's just notice we've got a person, the you is visiting a trauma therapist, okay? And it's a first appointment, and kind of like in Kalia's situation, the poem she had looked at, they've only spoken on the phone, okay? And you have to go, there's a path to a separate entrance for patients. So go ahead.
Okay, at the front door, the bell is a small round disc that you press firmly. When the door finally opens, the woman starts there yelling at the top of her lungs, "Get away from my house. What are you doing in my yard?"
Go ahead.
It's okay, it's as if a wounded Doberman French or German Shepherd has gained the power of speech. And though you back up a few steps, you manage to tell her you have an appointment. You have an appointment. She spit back. Then she paused. Everything paused. How? Oh, she says, followed by, "Oh yes, that's right. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. So sorry."
Thank you. Good reading. So y'all may know Doberman Pinscher is and German Shepherd. Both of those dogs are often used as guard dogs, or they kind of traditionally have that. A Doberman Pinscher is a big, strong dog like a German Shepherd. But the therapist was like a wounded Doberman Pinscher or German Shepherd and has the power of speech. Okay. And notice even when the you gets out that you have an appointment, the response is you have an appointment, she spits, which doesn't sound very nice, right? So Hannah, what we've kind of said the situation. Can you tell us, so what basically happens in the poem?
Okay, the new therapist, the special ed, the one he's just talking with her on the phone, when he show up, she didn't expect he's the one. Then she just yell at him. She
Yeah.
didn't realize about his appointment.
Yeah, she sees this person, and even though she's a therapist and has people scheduled to come for appointments, she somehow doesn't believe the person standing in the yard, doesn't see that person as a patient. Instead, she appears to see that person as some kind of a threat, someone she has to scream at to get out of get away from my house. What are you doing in my yard? Okay, that's what she has to say to her. So when finally, though, after she spits, notice that she pauses. Everything pauses. And what happens then, Hannah?
She realized she has appointment with her at that time, and she just stopped yelling at him, and she just tell him sorry.
Yeah. So then it sinks in, and she's able to be apologetic. But you know, this is very sad, because this is supposedly someone who's supposed to help you with your trauma, and instead she's creating trauma by the way she responds, you know. And I think that she is penitent at the end, but it's pretty clear she's engaged in very hurtful behavior. And, you know, I think here it should be obvious, you know, that what's the microaggression in this one, Hannah? It's not too micro. This one isn't too micro. This is pretty just aggressive.
Yeah. She just judged the person just by his looking.
Based on why she's looking, she assumes this person should not be in the yard, right?
Yes.
And so she says, get away from my house. What are you doing in my yard? And those are the aggressive. And again, I would correct myself. This is a much more of an aggressive thing, but it's completely based on what the person looks like, and that her thinking like I shouldn't be having a black person showing up for an appointment. And anyway, very painful. And we just get it to end with the apology. It's hard to know what would come of this. Would they ever be able to have a good relationship, or is this just the end of, you'd have to go seek help from somebody else. But the therapist could use a little help here, it seems like.
I was looking in the other way too. He's a new therapist, and she didn't expect he's a new therapist. Then she just, because of his look, because of his black, that's why she's yelling at him. She didn't expect, she remembered his appointment, but because of his skin, she didn't realize he's the one.
Correct. No, I think that's exactly what we're supposed to believe, what we're to understand, because they've only talked on the phone. And it's hard to imagine. You would think that, is this her very first black client? Has she never had a black client? But regardless, the patient, the client, is the one being penalized and victimized just for showing up, And when you live in a world where such a thing can happen, that makes for a lot of pain, and a lot of cumulative pain. So anyway, these are, the Citizens book, I've tried to give you a good sampling of it, but it's really a remarkable book for the ways that it makes us think about the different, kind of the seemingly harmless ways that I don't think this is harmless, but in some cases, that really just ordinary, commonplace, everyday things like being in a grocery line at a drugstore or shop or a deli, how just simple situations can lead to moments that are painful, and underscore the way a dominant race can marginalize and penalize and or undermine people and not look at them as human. Let's look at one more before we leave this. There's one in here that's really pretty awful, but it sort of makes the pain all the plainer, or makes all the clearer. Hold on, let me see. I think, yeah. So much of what's going on is not seeing people as human, not seeing people in there, as we say, their humanity. And so, let's see. Hold on just a second. I want to see who's in class a minute. Christoph, could you read this one for us, please? Christoph, are you there? Israel, are you there? All right, I'm going to, Tyler, let me come back to you. Do you mind reading this one for us?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
When the woman with the multiple degrees says, "I didn't know no black woman could get cancer," instinctively you take 2 steps back, though all urgency leads to the possibility of any kind of relationship, as you realize nowhere is where you will get from here.
Okay. What's the situation here? Who's speaking? What kind of exchange has gone on?
A doctor to a patient?
I'm not sure it's a doctor. I think a doctor would know better than this. But it is a woman with multiple degrees. So
someone who's educated.
Someone supposedly educated, right? But what does that person say?
She didn't know Black women could get cancer.
So how would that, so why would that be a microaggression?
Because number one, it just highlights how uneducated she is. Number two, or ignorant she is. And number two, it makes it seem like there's a fundamental difference between that she believes are between the two women.
Very
That,
good.
oh, you can't like with cancer because you're not like one of us or whatever.
Can you imagine being so oblivious to other people that you could come up with something like this, that you didn't know that everybody suffered, everybody could share, had, could be vulnerable to diseases. And, here again, though, that's a very crude statement, but notice that the person receiving it just really recognizes quickly, this is not somebody I want to be friends with, right? This is not anyone I want in a relationship with. There's nowhere to go from here if this is all this person can see. And so again, here, however hurtful and crazy and ignorant she might have thought it was, the you of the poem pulls away, is not going to allow herself to be victimized by this. But this particular incident has a basis in reality, and that a lot of studies have shown that doctors can be much more reluctant to give pain medicine to Black people. It's as though they presume there's a higher pain tolerance. And there's just a lot of evidence of that.
Or that they're addicts.
Or perhaps, right? But that the medical profession has demonstrated a bias of not respecting the ability to curb pain equally of people across races. And so there's a real good lesson there about trying to learn more about respecting each other's humanity, respecting each of us as people. So let's just leave it at that. And but I teach these poems because I feel like they're just great little instances to learn from, great little pieces to learn from. And so that's why I want us to have them. So let me stop now. I'm gonna come back. Ismahan. And we'll come back to, oh, by the way, did y'all notice I'm not at home today? And so we have a change of scenery. Some good friends who have a place in Truro on the Cape were away and invited us to come stay there. And so my wife and I are visiting here. But with the
that's nice.
With the magic of Zoom and online class, we can meet regardless. But all right, so let me come back to my slide a minute. Okay, so now we're going to move into preparing you for your essay that you're going to take up next week. And some of this I'm going to be repeating if you were here from the first, but some of you joined late. So if you didn't hear it at the beginning, you'll hear it now. Now, when I wrote this slide, when I was preparing this, I was only planning to give you 3 poems to choose from, but I'm actually going to give you 1 essay too, so that if for any reason you're more comfortable working with an essay, you can do that. But here's the thing, a standard thing in the English department at Bunker Hill is to get you to read something on your own and then come to class and get a writing prompt for it and write about what you've read on your own, okay? That's been the way that the classes have been structured for a long, long time. And I believe that exercise has a lot of value because it sort of helps you, it makes you compress your writing it makes you deal with your writing head on. It also is probably something you have to do for other classes to whatever extent you have exams that have discussion questions and so on. But and so I've mainly found it a useful learning experience, a good way for you to demonstrate your writing ability. And so we're going to do it even though we're not in class together. So when I wrote this up, I'd only planned to give you 3 poems and you were going to choose one, but I'm also going to include an essay as an option. But what's different here, anyway, you'll read these things at home. When you come to class next week, I'll give you a prompt for each one, and you can then choose which you want to write about. And this is going to be in class. I'm using that in quotes because we're not in class. If we were at Bunker Hill, you would come to class, get your assignment, and you would have to turn it in before you left. So we can't do that. But ideally, you would complete it within 2 to 3 hours, and 2 is probably plenty for most of you. But knowing that some of you have children, some of you have work conflicts, I'm going to say no later than Sunday night. But I don't want this to drag out. You should look at it as something that you're effectively doing in one sitting. And so if you're not able to do it during our class time and right after, you should block off 2 or 3 hours and try and do it there. So let me be clear though about, excuse me. What you're trying to do on this exercise is that you're trying to show that you understood what you read. That's one goal, is just to say, I can read on my own, I'm going to make sense of this, and I can explain what I read. And then you're going to be showing that you can connect some important idea from what you've read. And notice I'm not just saying poem, because you're going to have an essay option, but you can connect an important idea from what you read to your own experience. And that's a form that a lot of our assignments so far have taken. And then the other thing is that it's not just that you write about it, it's not a discussion question that you can answer just, with isolated paragraphs. You're actually going to shape it into a well-structured essay where you have a strong introduction, you have a well-developed body, and you have a thoughtful conclusion. And I'll give you a little more guidance next week, but a strong introduction, I mean, I want you to try to have a hook, a main idea, and a roadmap of what's going to be in your essay. The well-developed body means that you're going to talk a little bit about what you read, whether it's a paragraph or 2, and then you're going to talk about how your own experience connects to it, and that would be another paragraph or 2. And so that's the way that it would be organized. And then you'll have a conclusion that is thoughtful in itself and kind of makes it clear what you've learned from it, or what you think is important about what you wrote. But I'll reiterate that some next week. I'm just trying to reinforce it here now. So usually the way this works is you have one reading and then you get 2 prompts to choose from. So, and prompts are the words for, like your writing assignments. So, so normally the choice comes that you can take this topic or that topic, but you're only writing about, either one applies to one reading. I'm giving you multiple readings. I'm going to give you 3 poems plus an essay. And the poem, and you can choose, you can read those, see which you think you might be most comfortable writing about. I think you should approach it. I think a poem, you may have poems may seem mysterious to you, but what's good about a poem is they're very short and they're concentrated. You don't have to read as much. They're easier to look at right in front of you. But what you'll be trying to do, let's just use the language of the poem a minute. You'd be trying to show that you understand the poem and that you can connect it readily to your experience. Or I'm sorry, what I'm trying to get at here, you would choose the poem. Think of, as you read the poems this week, think about the ones that you're most comfortable with, that you understand, you can connect to your experience. And then when you come to class and you get the prompt, make sure the prompt fits what you understood about that. And you would choose the one you're going to write about based on both feeling comfortable with the poem and feeling comfortable with the prompt. equally for the essay. I hope that wasn't too confusing, but I'm trying to just give you a sense of that. So what we're going to do is a warm up. We're going to read a couple more poems, and what I'd like to do is, these are one of your poems. Here, let me come to your middle bullet. The 3 poems I'm giving you are one by Lucille Clifton called Won't You Celebrate With Me, one by Jabari Asim called The Talk, and one by a poet from 7 centuries ago, Rumi, a Persian, called The Guest House. And I want you to read and reread the poems for next week, and just be sure that you see one that you could write about, given if the prompt was right for you. Now, what I'm going to add at the end, I've added an essay called Why I Fear for My Sons. And that's going to also be something I think it would be useful to read. It connects a lot to this piece, The Talk. But if you don't want to write about a poem, you'd rather write about an essay, that will be your option. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to look at these 2 poems, Homage to My Hips and Running into a New Year, and talk about them. These 3, we're just going to read aloud. We're not going to discuss them, but we're going to read them aloud just so you get exposed to them. And then this week, your only homework is to read and let them sink in, let them see what they make you think about in your own life. And then when you come next week, be ready to write about one of them. All right. So with that, let's look at a couple of poems by Lucille Clifton. All right, here's her poem, Homage to My Hips. And Ismahan, could you read this for us?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. I can't see the screen.
Can you see it all right? Start with the title.
No, I can't see it. Hold on.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Again, I was stupid and didn't share it. I just put it up on my screen.
It's okay.
All right, hold on just a second. There you go.
Homage to my hips. These hips are big hips. They need to space to move around. They don't fit into little petty places. These hips are free hips. They don't like to be held back. These hips have never been enslaved. They go where they want to go. They do what they want to do. These hips are mighty hips. These hips are magic hips. I have known them to put a spell on a man and spin him like a top.
Very good. Thank you. So, Ismahan, you can speak, or any others if you want to join, want to. What does this poem seem to be about? Should we read it again, or was one time give you a good sense here?
I think the first time was good.
Why is she paying homage to her hips, Ismahan?
Can you explain what like? I don't really get the title either, to be honest. Like, reading the poem, I understand it's more about a woman and controlling a man or something.
Well, let's think about homage means in praise of, right? In praise of my hips, okay? And what are her hips like?
They're wide.
Well, what are they? She says they're big hips. They need space to move in. So this is, we might, to put it colloquially, we might say this is a big butt, right? This is somebody with, that's what she's saying. But is she ashamed of that?
No, she's actually really proud of it.
Yeah, see how there's a pride that comes through, and what she's speaking of, and they don't fit in little petty places. Petty means like really small. They're free. They don't hold back. They've never been enslaved. So there's a lot of pride coming through here, right?
Yeah.
And even to the point that she can say they're mighty and they're magic. And they can put a spell on a man and spin him like a top. So, so she's celebrating her hips in some way, right? And proud of her body. you might imagine, we could imagine, it's not hard to consider that like a lot of people just are, you know, many of us in one way or another, we're not proud of our bodies. And there's a lot of things we see that, you know, we talk about body shaming. You know, there's a lot of what appears to be in the media and in, you know, in movies of what's beautiful isn't being big hipped necessarily, you know. And so there's a kind of standing up for herself going on here. And so, you know, like if this were one of the poems you were writing about, what I would want you to try to think about is, first of all, be able to say, what does she mean by homage and how does she pay homage to her hips? And then what does this relate to in your own life? Is there anything in your life that people might look at as being embarrassing or not right, but you're proud of? Or ways that you might be put down, but you don't allow yourself to be put down. That's a
Kind
little
of like when Muslim girls are wearing hijabs.
Say that again, Ismahan.
I said kind of like when Muslim girls are wearing hijabs and then people make them feel like they're different,
Yeah,
like they're proud of it.
yes. And I'm sorry, say the first part again, like what?
I said how Muslim girls wear hijabs, like
Yeah.
the scarves on the head, and then people try to make them feel bad about it.
Yeah, okay. That's the kind of thing that I want you to try to see if you can make connections about. So let's see, where did I put my, okay, let's see, let's go, I've got another one of hers. And do I have it down here? All right, hold on, I'll tell you what I'm, okay, I've gone to your assignment folder now, and I'm going to go to readings. And notice that, okay, we just looked at homage to my hips. We're now going to look at I'm running into a new year. And then these are the poems that we're going to read before we quit today that you're taking home. And here's that you'll read further at home and can choose one to write about. The essay that you could write about is this one, Why I Fear for My Son. So they're all in your assignment folder. I think I had meant to come here, but let's look at, I'm running into a new year. And is there someone who hasn't read today who would like to read this? Jason, how about you? Could you mind reading it for us?
Yeah, I can read it. I'm running into a new year. I'm running into a new year, and the old years blow back like a wind that I catch in my hair, like strong fingers, like all my old promises, and it will be hard to let go of what I said to myself about myself when I was 16 and 26 and 36, even 36, but I am running into a new year, and I beg what I love, and I leave to forgive me.
Okay. Thank you, Jason. Yep. Jason, what did you gather is going on here? What's going on about running into a new year?
I feel like he's like leaving behind like I guess I don't know. I just read it, but I feel like I just read it without thinking. Let me just reread it real quick. Okay, yeah, I think that he like said a few things about himself that he wasn't maybe proud of. And then he's like moving away from that and trying to run into a new year, maybe a better way of life.
Yeah. And you know, and think of it, yeah, look at some of the lines here. All my old promises, and it's hard to let go of what I said to myself. You know, this is making us think about how we have different ideas about ourselves at different ages. And this reminds me a little bit of what happened to the guy in Bullet in the Brain. Some of the things that were real important to us at one time, we shed, we leave them behind. And Lucy actually says, I beg what I love and leave to forgive me. You know, but she's thinking of the things, it will be hard to let go of what I said to myself. It's hard for us to recreate ourselves or to recognize where it's time to move on or where it's time to do something differently. And, you know, sometimes that's because of what we think of ourselves. Sometimes it's the way our families think of us, of our friends, or different ways that we might at one point or another become something different from what ourselves or others had imagined. But notice she's saying, I beg what I love and I leave to forgive me. She knows she's leaving behind some things that were once important to her, but the forgiveness has to do with, you know, wanting to be able to accept that, not doing it to hurt herself or to hurt others, but doing it because she needs to go somewhere, do something new. And, you know, I don't know if a new year is literally like January the 1st or New Year, this is a birthday poem, but it is a poem about doing something different, you know, not doing the same things, about accepting change. That might be a simpler way to think about it, just accepting change. And you know, if I were trying to write about this, I would try to talk about how she is clearly acknowledging that she wants to see things differently, and she has different ideas about herself, and she doesn't think the same way that she did when she was 16 or when she was 26 or even 36, that her idea of herself keeps changing. And then I would probably try to connect it in my own life to something that I was going through that showed how, you know, I used to do at one point, this was really critical, but now I'm ready to do this, or now I'm shelving that so I can go on to this. I would be trying to think of experiences in my life like that. Okay. So now we've just got about 5 minutes, but let's just read the poems that you have that you can choose from. We're not going to read the whole essay, but all of these poems are short. And the first one is by Lucille Clifton. So Kalia, could you read this one for us, please? And we're just going to read these. We're not going to talk about them. This is just your first exposure, but I want you to hear them before we leave. Go ahead, Kalia.
Won't you celebrate with me? Won't you celebrate with me what I have shaped into a kind of life? I had no model. Born in Babylon, both non-white and woman, what did I see to be except myself? I made it up. Here on this bridge between starshine and clay, my one hand holding tight, my other hand, come celebrate with me that every day something has tried to kill me and has failed.
Thank you. Good reading. All right, so that's one choice. All right. Abdi, why don't you read the talk? Now I'll give a little preface here. This was written right after Michael Brown was murdered by policemen in Ferguson, Missouri. And the talk, you know, traditionally the talk used to be a word that people would say for when their parents explained the facts of life to them, the birds and the bees, the sexual nature of our existence. That's what the talk was. This is a different talk inspired by Ferguson. So Abdi, could you read this for us?
Yeah, sure. It's not
And
short.
you'll see it's in rhymed couplets mostly. There's one place where there's more than a couplet, but go ahead, Abdi.
It's more than time we had that talk about what to say and where to walk, how to act and how to strive, how to be upright and stay alive, how to live and how to learn, how to dig and be dug in return, when to concede and when to risk, how to handle how to handle stop and frisk. Keep your hands where they can see and don't reach for your ID until they requested quite clearly, speak politely and answer sincerely. The law varies according to where you are, whether you're traveling by foot or driving a car. It won't help to be black and proud, nor will you be safer in a crowd. Keeping your speech calm and restrained, ask if in fact you're being detained. If the answer is no, you're free to go. If the answer is yes, remain unfazed. To avoid being choked, shot, or tased. Give every cop your ear, but none your wit. Don't tempt him to fold, spindle, mutilate, hit, or otherwise cause pain to tendons, bones, muscles, brain. These are things you need to know if you want to safely come and go, but there is still no guarantee that you will make it home to me. Despite all our care and labor, you might frighten a cop or a neighbor whose gun sends you to eternal sleep, proving life's unfair and talk is cheap.
Thank you. Good reading. All right.
Oh yeah, I've gotten to talk like that before.
Excuse, was that Tyler?
Oh, I was saying, yeah, I've gotten to talk like that before from my
Yeah.
parents.
Same.
Yeah, you
Tyler.
too.
I think these are more common today. And all right, so one more. That's your second choice. This third one's a good bit different. The theme of the talk and the theme of why I fear for my sons have a lot in common, as does Won't You Celebrate With Me? You heard that one as well too. Celebrate every day something has tried to kill me and has failed. So now let's look at the guest house. And do we have a volunteer reader? Okay, Tyler, why don't you take care of this for us?
The guest house. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes, our unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house, empty of its furniture. Still treat each guest honorably. They may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whatever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond.
Thank you. All right, this is your third choice. Now let me just iterate. If one of these sounds like something you would be glad to work with, you know, you may or you may not even want to read the essay. If you're really not comfortable with any of these, read the essay and plan to write about it. What's going to happen is that I think that you want to gauge, I get what's going on here, and I know I could talk about this piece, and I think it relates to my own experience. And then when you read the prompt, you just want to be sure that the prompt actually fits what you understood. But here's all your homework. Read these 3 poems till you're good and comfortable with them. I would read them early. I'd come back like Wednesday or Thursday and read them again. And read the essay if you care to, and it may be useful to read the essay, period. It's a very fine one. It also happened to come out around the time of Ferguson and of Michael Brown's death. And really just come next Friday prepared to read your prompts and choose one to write on, okay? And other than that, I didn't mention it, but if you, most of you, I gave an instruction to how to end your journal. If you have a little work to do on your journal, wrap that up. There's no other written homework this week, but many of you didn't have your citizen homework. You know, you may have homework you want to make up, but you really just be ready to, next week, come ready to write. Okay? Is that good?
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Good. All right, listen, thank you all, and do have a good morning and a good day, good weekend, good week, and I will see you next Friday ready to write, okay?
Have a good day, Professor.
You too.
Thank you, River.
Okay,
Have a good
Thank
weekend.
you.